You're listening to The Observing Eye. Pirate radio for the mind. Coming at you fresh from the computer hell cabin.
Hello, you beautiful lot. It is Sunday, the 17th of November, 2024, and you are listening to The Observing Eye, coming at you live from the computer hell cabin. Each week we get psychological, philosophical, and all manner of introspective. I'm David, and this week we'll be exploring what lies at the very heart of what it means to live consciously and purposefully, the idea of having your own personal philosophy. So what exactly is a personal philosophy? We hear about it in various forms. Sometimes it's called a guiding principle or moral compass, or simply a set of values. But whatever we call it, a personal philosophy is essentially the belief system that shapes how we see ourselves, our relationships, and the world around us. It's the foundation that gives our actions meaning and our choices consistency. It's the lens through which we experience life, and in many ways, it's what defines us. But why, you might wonder, is this so important? Why should we make the effort to define and nurture our personal philosophy? Well, that's what we're going to unpack in this episode. We live in a time where it's easier than ever to lose ourselves to distractions, to feel pulled in 1,000 directions by the latest trends, opinions, and social pressures. Every day we are bombarded with information and options, sometimes conflicting ones about who we should be and how we should act. And if we don't have a personal philosophy, a clear sense of what matters to us, what we believe and what we're striving for, then it's all too easy to become untethered, to get lost in the noise. Today we'll explore how having a personal philosophy can serve as a kind of inner compass. It helps us navigate life with more clarity and purpose, even when things get tough and confusing or just, overwhelming. A well-defined personal philosophy allows us to stand firm in our decisions, align our actions with our values, and ultimately live in a way that feels true to who we are. And let's be honest, in a world where it's so tempting to live on autopilot, that is no small feat. In this episode, we'll be talking about how to create a personal philosophy that feels authentic and meaningful. We'll dive into why it's worth the time and energy, how it can impact our psychological well-being, and even how it shapes our relationships and sense of purpose. I'll also share some ideas on what a process of developing and refining a personal philosophy might look like, and talk about the common challenges that can come up along the way. By the end of this episode, my hope is that you'll feel inspired to start crafting or strengthening your own personal philosophy. Whether you're someone who's already given this a lot of thought or you're entirely new to the idea, I think you'll find value in the process. It's something deeply personal, but it's also universal. After all, we all want to feel that our lives have meaning, and a personal philosophy is one way to create that meaning for ourselves, to move from being just a passive observer of our lives to becoming an active, intentional participant in it. But first, I need to do a bit of housekeeping. I want to open this up, and I have been wanting to do this for a while, open up this whole podcast thing to my beautiful audience. And I want to ask you if there are questions or topics that you would like me to cover in a future episode. You can drop any of these ideas that you have in the comments on whatever platform that you're on, or you can actually email me at david@theobservingeye.com. Now, as far as I'm concerned, you are all as much a part of this journey as I am, and I am very interested to see what is resonating with all of you right now. Now, of course, if I get enough questions come in, then I can do like a special episode where I just answer all of them in one go. Or maybe I'll do a live. I'll do some sort of live transmission, and we can go through the questions there. But that's enough of that. Let's get into the actual topic of this episode. Why you need to have a personal philosophy and how it can transform the way you experience the world and yourself. to start, let's look at what I mean by the value of a personal philosophy. It might sound abstract at first, but think of it this way. Each of us already has a way of viewing the world, whether we're conscious of it or not. We each have values, beliefs, and assumptions that shape how we make decisions, react to challenges, and interact with others. But if we don't take the time to examine those beliefs and refine them into a coherent philosophy, we risk drifting through life, letting circumstances or others shape our path instead of making intentional choices for ourselves. You see, when we look back at some of history's greatest thinkers, from Socrates to Nietzsche, from Lao Tzu to the Buddha, there is a consistent theme. They each created a personal philosophy that acted as a foundation for everything they did. It wasn't just about having a collection of ideas. It was about forming a worldview, a set of guiding principles that they could rely on, that they could challenge and evolve over time. These philosophies helped them to navigate their own lives with intention and with depth. Now, you might wonder, why is a personal philosophy so valuable today in the 21st century? After all, isn't life more complex now, more dynamic? And that is true. In many ways, life today is incredibly different from the lives of the philosophers who lived centuries or even millennia ago. But in other ways, it's exactly the same. We are still faced with questions of purpose, meaning, and morality. We still face hardship, uncertainty, and the desire to connect with something greater than ourselves. And if anything, the rapid pace and complexity of modern life makes a personal philosophy even more essential. In today's world, where we are bombarded by information, opinions, and expectations from every direction, it is easy to lose ourselves in what everyone else thinks or does. We are constantly encouraged to look outside of ourselves, to compare, to compete, to conform. And while it's natural to want to feel connected to society, when we lack a personal philosophy, we risk being swept up in the currents of social pressure, trends, and the endless chase for external validation. A personal philosophy offers us a way to step back from all of that, to say, here is what I believe, here is what I stand for. It is an anchor in a world that sometimes feels chaotic. When we take the time to develop and refine our beliefs, it's like we're giving ourselves a manual for how to live, a roadmap for making decisions that feel authentic and aligned with who we are. In a way, a personal philosophy is like creating a home within ourselves. It's a space where we can go to reconnect with our values, to find clarity when we're lost, and to make sense of the challenges we face. It's what helps us understand not just what we're doing, but why we're doing it. And when you have a clear why, your actions and choices feel more meaningful. Life itself takes on a richer quality. To give you an example, think about the Stoics, philosophers like Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus. They each cultivated a personal philosophy rooted in resilience, rationality, and acceptance. For them, life was full of uncertainty and hardship, but their personal philosophy helped them respond with grace and wisdom, even in the face of pain, loss, and adversity. In a similar way, when we cultivate our own philosophy, we give ourselves a toolkit for facing life's ups and downs. Now, maybe you're listening and you're thinking, well, this all sounds very nice, David, but do I really need a personal philosophy? Can't I just live my life without one? And of course you can. But here is the thing. A personal philosophy isn't about having all the answers. It's about having a process for finding them. It's not a rigid set of rules, but a flexible framework that evolves with you. And in a world that's constantly changing, that flexibility, that ability to consciously shape and reshape our beliefs is incredibly powerful. So the value of a personal philosophy is really about reclaiming agency over our lives. It's about saying, I am the one who chooses what matters to me. It's an act of self-respect, a commitment to living intentionally rather than by default. And as we move through this episode, I hope to show you that creating your personal philosophy can be an incredibly transformative process. But first, I do have to give you a word from our sponsor. This episode is sponsored by Athletic Greens. No, it's not at all, actually. It's sponsored by me and my book, which is out on Amazon, and you can purchase it as a paperback or on the Kindle, and it sits very much alongside this podcast. So if you're interested in philosophy and psychology and ways that these ideas can be applied to our lives in general, then the book is a really great place to get some get some theory and some practical applications of it. The premise of the book, we go through a few different scenarios. We talk about authenticity, about gratitude, about letting go of stuff. And there's a lot of Stoicism, there's some Buddhism in there, there's all sorts of philosophy and theology that covers this stuff. And the end point of it is for you to be able to reflect upon yourself and whether you are living according to how you would want to live organically, or whether you've adopted all of these frameworks and ideas that come from the external. God knows there's enough of those that hit us every day. So if you're interested in the podcast, if you're interested in that sort of thing, some philosophy, some psychology, and some actual uses of them in day-to-day living, then go and buy my book on Amazon. You have to just search The Observing Eye, or I will put a link in the show notes for you to go and have a look at that as well. And I'm hoping that you will find it useful. So yeah, go buy my book. Subliminal messaging. Buy my book. You will buy it. Yeah, but see what you think. Or don't. It's entirely up to you. There's no pressure. I have no expectation here. It is out into the world and I have let go of it. So it is just there. It exists. And you may enjoy it if you so choose. Thank you for your time. And we now return to the transmission. All right. Now that we have a sense of what a personal philosophy is and why it's valuable, let's dig into why having a personal philosophy actually matters. Because let's face it, it's one thing to say, sure, I have my own way of thinking, but it's another to feel the deep benefits of having a guiding philosophy that genuinely shapes your life. And those benefits are real. They show up in the choices we make, the resilience that we build, and even in the way that we experience meaning and purpose. So let's break this down a bit. There are a few major ways that having a personal philosophy can make a tangible difference in your life. Firstly, it gives you clarity in decision making. Think of all the decisions you face on a daily basis, from the small ones like how to spend your morning, to the bigger ones like choosing a career, ending or starting a relationship, or deciding where you want to live. Without a clear sense of what you believe and what you value, making those decisions can feel overwhelming. Every option starts to look the same, and we can easily end up either paralyzed by indecision or making choices based on convenience rather than conviction. But when you have a personal philosophy, it is like you have a compass. Suddenly, your choices aren't random, they're aligned with the things that matter to you. If, for example, your personal philosophy includes a commitment to kindness and growth, then when you're faced with a tough choice, you're more likely to choose the option that reflects those values. It might be choosing the more challenging path because it aligns with your growth, or treating someone with patience and understanding even when it's difficult. A personal philosophy gives us a sense of direction, and that direction isn't something anyone else can give us. It comes from within. So rather than living reactively, we start to live proactively. Our actions are no longer just responses to circumstances, they are expressions of our beliefs. Second, a personal philosophy builds psychological resilience. Life, as we all know, isn't easy. We face loss, failure, heartbreak, and countless other challenges. And when those tough times come, having a personal philosophy can be like having an anchor. It doesn't necessarily make the storm go away, but it gives us something to hold on to, a set of beliefs that can guide us through. One of the best examples of this comes from Viktor Frankl, a Holocaust survivor and psychiatrist who wrote extensively about finding meaning in suffering. Frankl's personal philosophy centered on the idea that even in the worst situations, we have the power to choose our response. This belief helped him survive unimaginable hardship and eventually inspired millions of others through his work. Now, most of us won't face that level of suffering, but the principle applies to all kinds of adversity. When you have a guiding philosophy, you're better equipped to navigate hardships because you have something deeper to rely on than just the circumstances themselves. Next, having a personal philosophy helps you navigate uncertainty. Now, let's get real for a minute. Life is very full of unknowns, and sometimes that can feel terrifying. Whether it's a global pandemic, an unexpected career shift, or changes in our personal lives, uncertainty is part of the human experience. But with a personal philosophy, we don't need to have all the answers. Instead, we know what we stand for and what matters most to us, and that can be enough to keep us grounded. For instance, if your personal philosophy emphasizes adaptability and a commitment to learning, then When you're faced with change, you might see it as an opportunity rather than a threat. You might not know exactly where you're going, but you trust that you have the inner resources to handle whatever comes your way. That sense of trust in yourself is incredibly empowering, especially when the future feels uncertain. Then there's the sense of meaning and purpose that a personal philosophy brings. We often talk about purpose as something that's handed to us as if it's a single predetermined thing that we need to find. But purpose isn't always something we discover. Oh, look, I appear to have found my purpose in a shoebox in the cupboard under the stairs. But purpose isn't always something we discover. It's something we create. And a personal philosophy gives us the framework for creating it. Imagine your personal philosophy includes a dedication to helping others, or a love of creativity, or a deep respect for nature. Those aren't just abstract ideas, they are sources of purpose. They give you something to wake up for, something that adds meaning to your daily life. So rather than just wandering through life, constantly wondering what is the point, you have a sense of direction, of purpose that you actively contribute to and define for yourself. And finally, a personal philosophy shapes how we relate to others. Think about the people closest to you, your family, your friends, maybe even your colleagues. Our relationships are deeply influenced by our values and beliefs, whether we are aware of it or not. When we take time to define our personal philosophy, we are also taking a stand on how we want to treat others, what we expect from our relationships, and what we are willing to give in return. For example, if your personal philosophy emphasizes compassion and empathy, that's going to show up in your relationships. You might find yourself listening more deeply, being less judgmental, or seeking to understand others even when it's difficult. And over time, those values don't just benefit others, they transform your own experience of relationships, making them more fulfilling and authentic. So to sum it up, having a personal philosophy isn't just an intellectual exercise. It is a very powerful, very practical tool that enhances our decision-making, builds resilience, helps us to face uncertainty, creates a sense of meaning, and enriches our relationships. In a way, it's what transforms us from just existing to actually living. It's what gives our life texture and depth. It's what helps us not just get by, but kind of get on and do well. And the best part, your personal philosophy doesn't have to be static. It's not like some painting that you stick up on the wall and go, c'est là, it is done. No, it is something that evolves with you because we all evolve over time. We're constantly changing. It grows as we grow. So as we continue in this episode, we're going to look at how you can start building or refining your own personal philosophy and what steps you can take to make sure that it is authentic and true to who you are, because that is very important. Right. We have talked about what a personal philosophy is and why it matters. Now let's get into the heart of the episode. How you can actually start developing a personal philosophy of your own. This isn't necessarily an easy or quick process, as I'm sure you can imagine, but it is deeply rewarding. In fact, it is one of the most powerful acts of self-reflection and self-creation that you can undertake. A personal philosophy isn't something that we can just pick off a shelf. It is something that we have to develop over time through reflection, experience, and a willingness to dig deeply into what we truly believe. And while there's no single right way to go about it, there are some key steps that can guide us through the process. The first step is self-reflection. Now, that's that word I bandy around quite a lot in this podcast. Now, of course, it might sound obvious, but it is very often overlooked. Developing a personal philosophy begins with asking yourself some pretty big questions and giving yourself the time and space to reflect on those. You're essentially getting to know yourself on a deeper level, beyond the usual routines and surface-level thoughts that occupy most of our day. So what kind of questions should we be asking ourselves? Think about questions like, what do I value most in life? What kind of person do I want to be? What brings me a sense of purpose or fulfillment? What are the things that matter to me even if the world disagrees? Questions like these help us to uncover our core values and beliefs, and they are not questions with quick or easy answers, as I'm sure you can imagine. They are questions that we have to live with. They need to be explored over time. One helpful approach to this is to take a few minutes each day, maybe in the morning or before you go to bed, to just reflect on those questions. Some people like to journal their thoughts, others might meditate on them or even discuss them with someone they trust. The point is to start creating a space in your life for self-reflection, where you can begin to dig into what truly matters to you. Next, we start exploring some core philosophical questions. These are questions that go beyond our personal preferences and invite us to think about life in a broader, more universal sense. Questions like, what is the purpose of life, if any? What is the nature of good and evil? How should I relate to others? What does it live to mean a meaningful life? And if anybody puts 42 in the comments for what is the purpose of life, if you know, you know. Engaging with questions like these allows us to start shaping a worldview, a set of guiding principles that aren't just about our individual circumstances, but about life itself. This is where you can start exploring different philosophical schools of thought, like Stoicism, existentialism, or even Eastern philosophies like Buddhism, to see which ideas resonate with you. Now, this doesn't mean you have to adopt one school of thought wholesale. Think of it more like visiting different rooms in a museum. You're kind of browsing, examining, and seeing what speaks to you. And over time, you might find that certain ideas or values feel like a good fit, while others don't. For example, maybe Stoicism resonates with you because it emphasizes resilience and acceptance of what you can't control. Or maybe existentialism speaks to you because it celebrates the freedom to create your own meaning. The point isn't to box yourself into one philosophy, but to borrow ideas and build a framework that feels right for you. After exploring these questions, it is time to identify your core values. Once you have a sense of the beliefs and ideas that resonate with you, you can start distilling them into a set of core values. These are the principles that you want to guide your life. Things like kindness, courage, honesty, or patience. Try to choose values that feel authentic, not just things that you think you should value because of societal expectations. A good way to identify your core values is to think about times in your life when you felt genuinely fulfilled, proud, or even regretful. What was it about those moments that made you feel that way? Often when we feel regret, it's because we acted in a way that went against our true values. And when we feel pride or fulfillment, it's usually because we were living in alignment with them. Reflecting on these moments can give you insight into the values that really matter to you. Once you've identified your core values, try putting them into a statement. This doesn't have to be some grand declaration. It can be very simple. Something like, I value honesty, compassion, and personal growth, and I strive to live in alignment with these values. Or, my philosophy is to approach life with curiosity, kindness, and resilience. This statement is something you can refer back to, especially in moments of doubt or confusion. The next step, of course, is to put this philosophy into practice. A philosophy isn't just an idea. It is something that guides our actions and choices. Once you have a sense of your core values and guiding principles, you can start looking for ways to live them out in your everyday life. This might mean making different choices at work, in relationships, or even in how you spend your free time. For example, if one of your core values is kindness, you might make a point of showing compassion to others, even in difficult situations. I'm very cross, but I'm still going to be kind. Or if personal growth is important to you, you might commit to learning something new or taking on challenges that push you out of your comfort zone. These don't have to be big, dramatic changes. Small, consistent actions add up over time, and they are what make your personal philosophy real, not just a set of ideas. And finally, remember that your personal philosophy is a work in progress. One of the most powerful aspects of a personal philosophy is that it is not set in stone. Life changes, we grow, and our philosophy can evolve with us. Maybe you go through a major life event and it shifts your perspective, or maybe you read a book, meet someone, or experience something that changes the way that you see the world. That is all part of the process. Give yourself permission to revisit your philosophy, to refine it, and to let it grow as you do. This isn't about finding a perfect answer. It is about having a framework that helps you live intentionally and with integrity. And remember, the goal isn't to figure it all out once and for all. The goal is to engage in a lifelong process of growth and self-understanding. So, to recap all of that, the process of developing a personal philosophy involves self-reflection, exploring philosophical questions, identifying your core values, putting those values into practice, and allowing your philosophy to evolve with you. It is a journey, one that requires patience and a willingness to dig deep. But it is also one of the most rewarding things that you can do for yourself. Because at the end of the day, having a personal philosophy means that you are not just going through the motions of life. You are making intentional choices. you are living with purpose, and you are shaping the person that you want to become. Now that we've explored how to develop a personal philosophy, let's talk about the next big question. How do we actually apply it in our everyday lives? Because a personal philosophy, no matter how well crafted or thoughtful, is really just an idea until it's put into action. It's when we live by our philosophy, when we use it to guide our choices and behavior, that it becomes powerful and personally transformative. Living by a personal philosophy doesn't mean following a strict set of rules. It's more like having a compass, and this compass can guide us in all sorts of situations, from big life decisions to small everyday interactions. Which sandwich shall I pick from the Tesco deli aisle? Let's walk through a few examples of how to bring your personal philosophy into daily life. One of the most immediate ways to apply your philosophy is in the decisions that you make. Every day we make countless choices, and it is easy to feel pulled in different directions by external pressures, societal expectation, or even just our habits. But when we have a personal philosophy, we have a framework for making decisions that feel aligned with who we are and what we believe in. For example, imagine that one of your core values is integrity. That means when you're faced with a decision, whether it's as small as how honest to be in a tricky conversation, or as big as whether to stay in a job that doesn't feel right, you'll have a clear sense of what to do. You'll be guided by that commitment to integrity, even if it means taking a harder or less popular path. So next time you're faced with a choice, pause for a moment. Think about how each option aligns with your philosophy. Ask yourself, which choice reflects my values? Which action is in harmony with my beliefs? Over time, making decisions from this place of alignment becomes more natural, and you'll find that your choices begin to reflect who you truly are. Another area where your personal philosophy can make a big difference is in how you respond to challenges. Life, of course, isn't always smooth, and it's in those moments of hardship, conflict, or uncertainty that our philosophy becomes especially valuable. When things go wrong or we feel tested, our natural reaction might be to act out of fear, anger, or frustration. But a personal philosophy gives us a different way to respond, one that's based on our values, not just our impulses. Let's say your philosophy includes resilience and patience. When you encounter a setback, rather than immediately reacting with frustration or discouragement, you can draw on those values to approach the situation differently. You might remind yourself, I value resilience, so I'm going to use this challenge as an opportunity to grow. Or, patience is important to me, so I'm going to give the situation time to unfold. In this way, a personal philosophy doesn't prevent challenges, but it does change how we experience them. It gives us tools to navigate difficulty with a bit more grace, perspective, and intentionality. And often when we act in line with our philosophy, we end up feeling more at peace with the outcome, even if it's not necessarily what we wanted. Your personal philosophy also plays a crucial role in how you interact with others. Whether it's with family, friends, colleagues, or even strangers, filthy strangers, our interactions are opportunities to bring our philosophy to life. If compassion is one of your core values, for instance, you might make a conscious effort to listen deeply, to be present with others, or to show empathy, even in moments of tension or misunderstanding. You are not just reacting to others, you are actively choosing to bring your values into the relationship. Imagine that you're in a disagreement with a friend or partner. It is easy to get defensive or to insist on being right. But if your philosophy includes a commitment to understanding others, you might choose a different approach. You might say, my goal here isn't to win the argument, it's to understand where they're coming from because I value empathy and connection. This shift can have a profound impact on your relationships, making them a little bit calmer maybe, but also more meaningful and aligned with your deeper values. You are taking the competitiveness out of the relationship. It's not about winning a battle. It's about understanding another human being. A personal philosophy can also influence how you structure your time and energy. Think about your day-to-day life, the routines, habits, and activities that fill your time. Are they in line with the things that you value most? For instance, if creativity is a core part of your philosophy, but you are spending all your time doing spreadsheets, then there is a big disconnect there. By aligning your daily actions with your values, you create a life that feels fuller and much more intentional. Start by taking a look at how you spend your time and ask yourself, does this reflect my philosophy? Am I putting energy into things that actually matter to me? Now, this doesn't mean you have to change everything overnight, but small adjustments make a big difference. Maybe it's carving out time each day to engage in a creative practice, to connect with loved ones, or to just get involved in some sort of gratitude if that aligns with your philosophy. These small intentional actions build up over time, helping you live in a way that feels much more authentic and fulfilling. It is really important, from my experience, to spend some time doing something that is important to you, that you have some passion in. Because otherwise it's like, well, why am I doing all this? Just little bits, just, of time spent on doing stuff that is important to you. Let's make the space for that. And finally, sorry, that's a weird Rick and Morty reference I just snuck in there, little bits. And finally, applying your personal philosophy, I don't know what's going on today. Applying your personal philosophy means making space for growth. Remember that a personal philosophy isn't a fixed set of beliefs. It is something that evolves. Oh my God, I'm losing it. See, I get to this point, right? And what am I on? Segment 4? And I just start to lose all of it. It just falls to bits. You don't know how much I edit the last part of these podcasts. Where was I? Right. Remember that a personal philosophy isn't a fixed set of values. It is something that evolves as you learn, grow, and encounter new experiences. Living by your philosophy includes being open to changing it, to letting go of ideas that no longer serve you, and to embracing new insights as they come. For instance, maybe over time you realize that certain aspects of your philosophy need to shift. Perhaps you were focused on ambition and success, but you find yourself wanting to focus more on balance and contentment these days. Or maybe you used to value control and order, but you're starting to appreciate the beauty of spontaneity. Being willing to update and refine your philosophy is a part of living authentically. It is about honoring who you are in each moment, not who you were in the past. That's important to remember. So applying a personal philosophy in everyday life is about bringing your values into everything you do, from the choices you make to the relationships you create and even how you structure your time. It is about using your philosophy as a guide for responding to life's challenges and embracing it as a dynamic, evolving process. Because at the end of the day, a personal philosophy isn't just something you have, it's something that you live. It's what transforms ordinary actions into meaningful expressions of who you are and what you believe in. In our final segment, we'll discuss some of the common challenges that can come up as you try to live by your personal philosophy and how to handle them so you can stay true to your values even when it's difficult. Stay tuned. We've covered a fair amount of ground so far, from understanding what a personal philosophy is, to building one, and even putting it into practice. But if you're starting this journey, or even if you've been on it for a while, you'll know that it isn't always easy. Living by personal philosophy sounds inspiring, but it comes with challenges. In this final segment, I want to address some of the most common obstacles that you might face, and more importantly, how you might be able to overcome them. Because while these challenges can make it hard to stay true to your philosophy, they are also a part of the process, part of what deepens your commitment and helps you to grow. One of the first challenges, and I think it's something that we've all experienced, is self-doubt. Sometimes as we reflect on our values and beliefs, we encounter moments of uncertainty. Maybe we wonder, am I choosing the right path? Or who am I to define my own beliefs? This is especially common if we feel like our philosophy goes against mainstream ideas or the opinions of those around us. But here's the thing. Self-doubt isn't a sign that you're doing something wrong. It's a natural part of building something as personal and profound as a philosophy. And in fact, self-doubt can be useful. It invites us to question, to refine, and to make sure that our philosophy is rooted in authenticity, not just borrowed ideas or assumptions. So how do you handle self-doubt? One approach is to embrace it as a part of the journey. Remind yourself that a personal philosophy isn't about having all the answers, it's about exploring questions that matter to you. Whenever self-doubt creeps in, use it as an opportunity to revisit your beliefs, to dig deeper, and to reaffirm what feels true for you. Over time, this process of questioning and reaffirming actually strengthens your philosophy, making it more resilient and more meaningful. Another challenge you might face is the pressure to conform to societal expectations or the opinions of others. Now, of course, we live in a world that has a lot of opinions about who we should be, what we should value, and how we should live. And sometimes those external pressures can make it hard to stay true to our own beliefs. Maybe our friends, families, or work colleagues don't understand or support our philosophy. Maybe they have different values, or maybe they question our choices. When we encounter this kind of pressure, it can be tempting to bend or compromise on our philosophy to fit in or avoid conflict. But staying true to our philosophy doesn't mean we have to be rigid or confrontational. It simply means having the courage to stand by what we believe, even if it means going against the current. And that is not necessarily easy. One way to kind of get through this challenge is by setting clear boundaries. For instance, if honesty is one of your core values, you might be clear with others that you value open and direct communication, even if they don't always agree. It's always helpful to find a supportive community, whether that's friends, mentors, or even online groups, where you can discuss your philosophy openly and get encouragement to stay true to yourself. You need someone fighting in your corner, basically. The next challenge is handling the fear of change. Fear of change. As we grow and experience... Sorry, I don't know what's going on with that today. As we grow and experience life, our philosophy will naturally evolve. And while change can be positive, it can also be unsettling. We might fear that if we let go of certain beliefs or adopt new ones, we're somehow betraying our past self or abandoning something that used to feel important. The reality is, our philosophy isn't a static thing. It's a living, breathing framework that grows with us. And growth by its nature involves change. The key here is to remember that evolving your philosophy doesn't mean discarding everything. It means adapting and refining it to reflect who you are in the present, not just who you were in the past. So when you feel resistance to change, try to embrace it as a sign of growth. Give it a big hug. Ask yourself, is this new idea or value something that resonates with me today? Does letting go of this belief make space for something truer to who I am now? By approaching change with curiosity instead of fear, you will find that your philosophy becomes more adaptable and relevant as you evolve. Another common challenge is living by your philosophy when things get tough, especially in moments of stress, conflict, or temptation. Let's say that kindness is part of your philosophy. It's very easy to be kind when everything's going well and it's all plain sailing. But what happens when someone criticizes you unfairly or you're dealing with a difficult situation? It's very tempting to abandon your values and just go full rage mode, react out of anger, frustration, and defensiveness. Staying true to your philosophy in these moments is difficult, but it's also where the real growth happens. One useful approach is to create a few reminders or anchor phrases that you can use to bring yourself back to your values when you are feeling tested. For example, coming back to kindness as a core value, you might remind yourself,
I choose kindness not because it's easy, but because it's who I want to be.
Like Batman. It can also be helpful to practice self-compassion here. We're all human, and there will be times when we fall short of our ideals. Rather than beating yourself up, take these moments as opportunities to learn. Reflect on what happened, why it was difficult, and how you can handle similar situations better next time. The goal is never perfection. The goal is progress. Lastly, there's the challenge of finding the time and space to actually live intentionally. In our rather fast-paced world, it's easy to get caught up in routines, distractions, and obligations that pull us away from our philosophy. We might start with good intentions, but then we get busy, and suddenly it feels like there's no time to reflect or act in line with our values. This is where creating habits and practices that support your philosophy becomes essential. If reflection is part of your philosophy, maybe that means setting aside 5 minutes each morning to journal or meditate. If gratitude is important to you, consider a daily gratitude practice that reminds you of what matters most. These small but intentional habits create space in your life for your philosophy, even when things get busy. Also, remember that living by your philosophy doesn't require big dramatic changes. It's about the small choices that you make every day. You don't need hours of free time to live intentionally. You just need a willingness to bring your values into your daily actions, one choice at a time. Making your own philosophy doesn't mean like donning a toga and then gazing wistfully out at the sea from a cliff face, trying to understand the meaning of life. It is about applying these intentions to your actions. That is it. So to sum up, The path of living by a personal philosophy comes with its fair share of challenges. From self-doubt and external pressure to the fear of change, handling difficult moments, and finding time to reflect. These are all part of the journey. But by approaching each challenge with patience, self-compassion, and a commitment to growth, we strengthen our philosophy and our connection to it. In a way, each challenge is an opportunity to deepen your commitment and understanding, to refine your beliefs, and to become more aligned with who you truly want to be. And as always, remember that this is not about perfection. Living by a personal philosophy is a lifelong process, one that evolves with us as we grow. So be kind to yourself, for fuck's sake. Stay curious and trust in the journey. Because in the end, it is not just about having a philosophy, it is about living it. And that is where the true transformation happens. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is all I have to say on why you need to have a personal philosophy. We have journeyed today through the importance of having a personal philosophy. We have explored how to build one. We've discussed ways to live by it and face some of the challenges that can arise along the way. If there's one takeaway I hope you'll remember, it's that creating a personal philosophy is about more than just having a set of beliefs. It's about bringing a sense of purpose and intentionality to your life. It's about grounding yourself in something meaningful, something that is truly yours. Maybe you're feeling inspired right now, ready to dive in and start crafting your philosophy. Or maybe you're still processing everything, feeling the weight of just how big and personal this journey is. Wherever you are, I encourage you to remember that creating a personal philosophy doesn't need to be overwhelming. It is a journey, and like all journeys, it begins with a single step. This journey we've discussed today is both deeply personal and incredibly powerful. It's about more than just answering big questions. It's about taking ownership of your life, aligning with what you believe, and letting your values guide you through all of life's twists and turns. A personal philosophy isn't just a set of ideas. It is a relationship with yourself, with your core beliefs, your values, and the kind of life that you want to live. And it's a relationship that will evolve with you, grow with you, and support you through life's inevitable challenges and changes. Remember that crafting a personal philosophy does not require perfection, and is not something you have to get right from the start. It's a process, a journey of becoming. It's about being curious, patient, and willing to dig deep into who you are and what truly matters to you. You do not need to have all the answers. Who fucking does? Just start with one question, one reflection, one moment of honesty with yourself. Over time, these small steps build into something profound. Something that not only shapes who you are, but how you experience and contribute to the world around you. So wherever you are on your journey, I encourage you to stay open, stay curious, and keep exploring. Your personal philosophy is a gift that you give to yourself, a compass that you create and cultivate to help you navigate life with a sense of purpose, clarity, and integrity. Thank you for joining me on this journey today. I hope that you found some sort of insights, inspiration, or maybe even a few new questions to explore. And of course, if you're one of the beautiful people who have subscribed to the podcast in the past week or so, then I want to give you a huge thanks because your support is hugely, hugely appreciated. If you haven't subscribed and you did enjoy this episode, then maybe you would consider doing so. Or you could leave us a review, or you can share it with others who might find it interesting, because your support, as always, helps us to continue to bring you this sort of content. It also lets me know what you like and what you don't like. So, we can sort of tailor it a bit to what people are going for. As always, if anything in this episode has resonated with you in any way, then I would love to hear from you. You can share your stories via Patreon at patreon.com/theobservingeye or on social media. You can find us on YouTube at youtube.com/@theobservingeye and on TikTok and Instagram with the handle @theobservingeye as well. We also have a website, theobservingeye.com, and you can email us at david@theobservingeye.com. Take care, everybody. Much love, and I'll catch you soon.
You've been listening to The Observing Eye. Thanks for spending some time with me today. I hope it's been useful. And if you're interested in any more of my writing or work around psychology, philosophy, and general day-to-day living, please go and take a look at my Substack, which is theobservingeye.com. And that's I as in the letter, not I as in the gelatinous organ through which you see. Take care, everybody. Much love, and I'll catch you soon.